everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride. And today we are talking about the event from the Dunlin Trap, the zero-cost event that is from the Law Sphere, that is the Tree People. It has the action return a Sylvan ally you control to your hand to search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Sylvan ally. Put that ally into play and shuffle the other cards back into your deck. You can only play one copy of Tree People each phase. So, David, what are your thoughts on this event?
Love it for this deck that we're talking about here, the Slippery Silvan deck. But before we get into that analysis, let me just tell our audience here that Grant and I kind of thought we would talk about how cards work in certain decks because it just makes sense. Some cards don't make sense in any deck but the deck it was designed for. So we kind of learned that lesson with Boots from Erebor, where it doesn't make sense to run Boots from Erebor in any other deck other than a Dwarf deck or a Hobbit deck. And so, this is one of those cards, Tree People, that doesn't make sense to run in any deck unless you have a lot of Sylvans in it. So in this idea of this Slippery Silvan deck where the Sylvans come in and out of play all the time, this card is awesome. But this is one of those cards that doesn't make sense to run at all outside of a Sylvan deck, even if you're running a few Sylvan allies that make sense in decks other than Sylvan decks. This card you want to hit. You want to be able to pull a cheap ally into your hand like a Galleon or a Weaver or even a Galadrim Minstrel to be able to reuse their ability, Nath Guide, and then be able to draw cards and then pull at least a comparable ally back and put them into play. You don't want to whiff on this card, and it's really frustrating. Even with the Slippery Silvan deck, this card has a chance to whiff and has whiffed for me in kind of vital spots, so it's frustrating. But it makes absolute no sense to run this card in any other deck than a deck designed to have, if not all, most Sylvan allies. Grant, what do you think?
I love the card, love the artwork, love the cost.
Yeah, the cost is wild, zero cost.
And I love the flavor text. No folk could they see, no hear, any feet upon the path, but there were many voices about them, and in the air above them, the Fellowship of the Ring. And I love how accurate they managed to make it. The fact that taken from the book, they're hearing all these voices around them and above them, and then you pull one Sylvan back from the playing field to put in, say, a stronger one like Haldia or Rumil, and it's like they've done that really well.
Right. I love it when I draw Legolas. Legolas is also in the deck, and to be able to pull Legolas and not have to pay the 4 outside. I feel like I think at one point we did or will be talking about Rumil and how Rumil's, for me at least in this deck, kind of a late game guy. But that Legolas coming out is
the card was amazing. Yeah,
and so it helps when you get Legolas from the Tree People. It helps you card draw because Legolas has 3 attack and you're able to kill things, and so you get the extra card draw, so you can get more cards in your hand. So anyways, that's where the Tree People really shines, is when you can do that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm so excited to talk about Tree People. That's kind of the card that...
Other than that, I don't think there's much more to be said. I mean, you could put it in any deck if you just want a bit of shuffling your deck. So if you're not sure that your top card's going to be good, you could play Tree People, shuffle your deck, knowing that it's going to win.
That would be like a super niche case, right? You're running Gandalf, Hero Gandalf, and you want to shuffle your deck up because you don't like that top card.
and it couldn't happen.
Right.
It's
I mean, I get it. It's fine.
It's like people who use Master of the Forge when they know they've got no more attachments in your
right,
deck.
right. Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's just
For the cost of 0.
Right.
It's a deck shuffler.
Right. But I think that the one thing that frustrates me, I know. The one thing that frustrates me about Tree People is it's only once per phase. I mean, I get why you can do, because you can bring one in, and then you could use Tree People to bring another one in. Like, you could keep doing Tree People every phase, like, until you could. So I get why they do it, but it can be
frustrating. You can only do it 3 times anyway, because you can only have 3 in your deck.
Well, but that ends up being a lot more than that, because part of the beauty of the deck is that you can, pull a Galadrim Weaver. Like, let's say you bring the Weaver back into your hand, play Tree People, and then, Legolas comes out, and then you put the Weaver back into play. Now that Tree People goes back into your deck, and, like, the Weaver is a great target for Tree People. Galleon is a great target for Tree People. The other thing that's a little frustrating is when you don't pull expensive out. When you whiff, that's always frustrating. But even when you don't, like, the Greenwood Archer is always the frustrating pull, because typically you're playing not like before you've exhausted any of your heroes, but you still want to get them into play, so you play them, and that's fine.
Shall we ring Tree People, David?
Yeah, let's ring Tree People, but let's tell our audience that when you and I decided to do this, you came up with the idea, let's ring them against the whole card pool like we normally do, but then let's ring them within the deck itself, because it makes more sense, because you're going to run this card in a Sylvan deck. How important is it in the Sylvan deck? So Grant, what do you think of Tree People in that way?
Well, outside of a Sylvan deck, other than the niche case I mentioned before, which was just pure jokes, I have to rate it a 9, because you're not going to use it in any deck other than a Sylvan deck. So that's why I've got to give it a 9. Inside the deck, I'm rating it a 1, because it is so potent, so powerful, in that if you can get recursion on it and keep pulling out your allies for practically nothing, you're going to be laughing. So, David, what are your thoughts?
I have to agree exactly with what you said. Outside of a Sylvan deck, this card is useless, but because it can be played in a Sylvan deck, I have to give it 9 rings. So it's not useless in the whole card pool, but it's only going to be used in a couple of things. Within the deck, though, that card is amazing. It really accelerates your board state. It helps you pull out enemies for free, or not enemies. It helps you pull out allies for free. And so this card is, I think, vital for this sort of Slippery Silvan in and out of play. So I'm going to have to give it a 1 within the deck as well. So join us next time as we talk about more cards from the card game. Have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.